So let's go ahead and check in our first match, Rase versus Purple.
Lucas Guerra Romano, as known as Rase. Last year was pretty good for me. At the beginning, I won a major, I won the Copa America, and that was pretty nice because I could defend the Brazilian title. In Brazil, we have many great players too, but we don't have like that many support as other countries. It will be pretty nice to try to represent them because I know a lot of Brazilians will be cheering for me.
My name's Ryan Murphy-Root. I go by Purple. I really like waking up. The first 4 or 5 hours are like the best hours of the day. I like taking dogs for walks after my 8 hours of Hearthstone and my couple of naps.
Purple, yeah. I don't know like too much about Purple. I know he likes to play some different decks, some different like tech cards, but he's pretty good doing it. Have great results. Recently won the WESG, so another great player in my group too.
I see patterns in the game where it is no longer possible to win the traditional way, and I tend to see those pretty early. I don't really see any other players do that too much, where they're not able to make that transition.
Being here together with the best players in the world, I will keep playing like better and better, and I'm here to win. I will try my best for it. I don't want to lose.
My initial thoughts on the players on the division. Geez, well, we got some good players, we got some bad players, we got some medium players. Please don't ask me more. Personal goals for the year. Just win? Yeah, just win.
All right, Rase versus Purple. The stage has been set. You heard a little bit about their thoughts as we've been playing bits and pieces of their interviews throughout all of the regular season. Hearthstone Grandmasters is a program that really tries to find which among the concentrated top players of the world can beat each other and advance. And we take the top 3 players per division and advance them into a bracket to play the following week. So this is the last broadcast of the regular season. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, TJ, we'll be having a lot of contested battles back and forth to see who of the 6 players per region will be going to the global finals at BlizzCon this year.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and next week we're gonna come to the studio like it's a normal day. The players are gonna show up like it's a normal day.
Will we?
But maybe.
Will you?
Probably, unless something
Sure
happens.
about that, TJ? I heard that next week we have some spicy stuff happening. I can't exactly say what, but I did hear a little musing.
We do, but as far as like the normal matches are concerned, it's going to feel like a normal week, but a lot more at stake. And going in this first matchup between Purple and Rase, I know I've been making kind of a big deal out of tiebreakers. I love the tiebreakers and coming down to it, the numbers, the head-to-head win scores and all that stuff. But there's no better tiebreaker than just a head-to-head matchup. And that's what we have in store for us. Both players at 7-6. One player move up to 8-6. One player move down to 7-7. And one spot on the playoffs on the line. And I'll be honest with you, Dan. It's not looking good for Rase.
Well, I mean, the Warrior versus Warrior head-to-head, Rase has the Control Warrior. That is a deck that he used last week to great success alongside him and his practice team. Monsanto and other players able to bring Control Warrior. Even Shaxi from the Asia Pacific saw great results in week number 6 with Control Warrior. And it's become full circle because at the very beginning of the expansion of Rise of Shadows, all the cards rotated out from Year of the Mammoth, and everyone said, you know what, it's going to be a new day, a new me. All these different class predictions came out, but it ended up becoming the old guard Control Warrior that was dominating at the very beginning of the expansion. Then it started falling off, obviously some nerfs, some buffs, some new cards introduced, Hall of Fame, and all of a sudden, Control Warrior is back in a pocket where it can defeat Rogue, Warrior, and Mage. However, you're saying that despite all this, Purple is the one favored?
Yes. Purple is playing Bomb Warrior, and he's favored all the way through, which is not always the case. He does have the full bomb package in his primary deck with double Elic, double Goblin, double Excalibur, Blastmaster Boom. He also has Archivist Elysiana, so he can go toe-to-toe in Fatigue. And when both players are operating with the same game plan in Fatigue, but Purple has Pressure and Rase has like passive removal tools that are tough to use, Purple's a favorite in the primary. And in the secondary/tertiary, Rase does have the Mechathune Warrior, but Mechathune Warrior is a deck that needs to draw through the entirety of its deck in order to complete its combo. And the decks that have to draw through their entire deck and go into Fatigue to win the game, those are the decks that Bomb Warrior shines against. Because every bomb they shuffle in is a guaranteed 5 extra damage. And on top of that, in Purple's tertiary deck, he has a Tink Master Overspark, which makes things incredibly awkward for Rase because it shuts off his ability to go for the traditional combo of play Mechathune early, it dies, and then you use the Undertaker with Inner Rage and Devastate to get it off, because you can't leave your Mechathune vulnerable to a Tink Master Overspark. It has to die the turn you play it. So his only option is to go for try and get Mechathune from Geppetto, which is not a very consistent strategy. Or hope
Try.
that, yeah, it's not.
So keep Geppetto, throw away Mechathune, and pray.
And pray, yeah, which is not a very good strategy. But anything can happen, especially with cards like Archivist Elysiana, where you have access to pretty much most cards in the game, warrior class cards as well as any neutral card. That can make things a little different in the later stages. Rase went up in this matchup yesterday against Zelay with a very similar deck list and got crushed. So he's got to find a creative way to win in both of the games that he has to win in order to take the series and clinch that playoff spot.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Bomb Warrior against Control Warrior. We haven't seen that much of it since the very beginning of the season, because we did see some back and forth. But interestingly enough, Control Warrior did manage to beat Bomb Warrior 67% of the time, but we only had like 10 games or so.
Also, one card makes a huge difference. Archivist Elysiana. I think a lot of Bomb Warriors, especially if you look at data on ladder, like ladder statistics, Control Warrior oftentimes beats Bomb Warrior because they have access to Archivist Elysiana, where the Bomb Warrior does not traditionally play that on ladder. But in a tournament environment, when you can, kind of narrow down what your opponents are bringing, a lot of our primary decks in Specialists do have Archivist Elysiana, which means that Purple has just as many potential cards in his deck as Rase. He just has way more ability to pressure.
That's interesting, though, because I think almost every Bomb Warrior has teched in Archivist Elysiana, so how do you explain that? Like, the Control Warriors were beating the Bomb Warriors that had a second or tertiary deck guaranteed with Archivist Elysiana. I don't think there's any Bomb Warrior that didn't have a tech, or even in their primary.
Where are these matches coming from?
GM.
Like in week 1, 2?
Throughout every week. I've been tallying all
in week
the matchup
1,
rates.
we saw a lot of Control Warriors bringing like Archivist Elysiana plus bounce when it was 8 mana. That could explain it.
I mean, yeah, it's a possibility. I'm looking to see if there's any more recent data, but it looks like all the Warrior Mirrors we've had in the past few weeks have just been Bomb Warrior Mirrors. Ooh, speaking of Bomb, early explosions. And with no Blastmaster Boom activation, that card becomes a lot weaker. So Purple, even though it's good, generally Bomb Warrior wants the bombs to explode, that wasn't a good outcome for him.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain it, Dan. Just from my own personal experience in the when you're going up against Control Warrior with Bomb Warrior, it's like you have almost all like very similar tools. It's just that you have bombs, so you have a natural health advantage, and then you have similar card advantage. Then Bomb Warrior just has the pressure advantage and like tempo advantage. I can see it though. Purple just going to play Blastmaster Boom for 2 bombs. I mean, things like Dr. Boom Mad Genius on 7, and if your opponent warrior doesn't have it, it doesn't matter if you're playing Control Warrior or Bomb Warrior. If you have that discrepancy of having so much additional value because of your hero power early on in the game and your opponent doesn't, that could always make up a difference. And I can't remember too many Control Warrior versus Bomb Warriors throughout the season.
It happened mainly in Europe, actually. RDU and Yarla brought Control Warrior a lot, and they kept matching up against Bomb Warrior.
Okay.
And they split games, but the Control Warrior ended up winning a little bit more. It won 2 series, while the Bomb Warrior only won 1.
Okay.
In the early weeks. And outside of that, though, like you said, we haven't ran into too many of them. I do think my theory, as you can see, Purple just trying to get as much pressure onto the board as possible. Even just getting a couple of boom bots, not a big deal. Rase can defuse this pretty easily. My takeaway was that I think in the very beginning of Specialist, Control Warrior is a lot easier to understand how to tech because you're just trying to universally remove things, versus Bomb Warrior was still, and currently is,
This would be a good
experimenting with what they should really properly tech in for other matchups, particularly against other Warriors.
Yeah.
You see, for example, Warriors were like putting in Grom Hellscream and Cairn Bloodhoof to try and make their top end better, or mid game and top end better. Then you have people who are saying, I need to put mech packages in with like war gears and more tempo tools. And then some players are just like going full greed with like Mechathune, right? And other things. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. So my explanation was that I think that early on people were not doing their secondary and tertiary decks very well. And I think the players would be the first people to admit that too.
Yeah.
That they were learning the format and they said like, oh, you know, I kind of realized that my decks in the first couple weeks were awful.
Yeah. Where Control Warrior has, you know, pretty easy changes to make to switch up their decks. I can see that, and also I think players didn't, especially in like week 1 and 2, players really didn't understand the most efficient way to play Bomb Warrior.
Right.
The way that Delay played against Rase yesterday was, I think, the optimal way, where he went blow for blow with the Control Warrior, just removing their stuff. He did not pressure, like whatsoever. Saved most of his bombs until after Elysiana, then shuffled them in. Because one of the things we see a lot is Elysiana being used to get rid of bombs more so than to offset fatigue. And if you do that, let's say you get rid of 3 bombs in your deck, that's 15 damage, which makes up for multiple turns of fatigue. And Rase is going to go ahead and play out Harrison Jones here. I guess it's a nod to it. You don't want to draw too many cards in the matchup.
Right.
And he has Weapons Project to deal with Wrench Calibers. He's already seen one of them. So saying, well, I have Weapons Project to deal with the second Wrench Caliber, so I don't need Harrison Jones, so I might as well get it on the board before I have to use it to draw later on in the game.
Yeah, I think Rase ran into that situation yesterday and perhaps is like understanding it better.
Yeah.
Here's another reality too, TJ, that is a side effect that's not intended on either side, either when people are playing Control Warrior or going up against Control Warrior, is that the games are extremely long, therefore you get less practice games in. And with less practice games means many situations you don't encounter that might appear yourself during a tournament situation. So because you have less repetitions, you're like, I'm not exactly sure what to do.
Yeah.
And then what's really unfortunate is that if you learn on the spot, that might be the only time you ever encounter it.
Yeah.
But like the first time you ever encounter like, oh, we both went like 7 cards deep in fatigue, and we both like traded evenly resources on Elysiana, and now we're down to the very last card. What card should I be saving? Some players have like less than 10 games under the belt despite playing hundreds and hundreds of games with Warrior.
Yeah.
Because it's just takes so long and volume is. One thing that we mentioned with just saying back at the World Championships in Taiwan earlier this year, he said that he purposely didn't want to bring a warrior-centric strategy because he just didn't have time to practice. Rise of Shadows came out, and within like a week they had to submit deck lists for the World Championships. So they said, you know what, in the interest of time, let's make a rogue-centric strategy, because we all knew that Tempo Rogue back then was the same with Raiding Party.
Yep.
And that's what helped him land a top 8 spot, which was definitely a good call, but ultimately, as we know, the real deck of the tournament, the real strategy was centered around Mage, which ended up being the silver bullet for many strategies.
Yeah. And I think we saw a lot of that, especially in week 1, where players were admitting that they just didn't have many warrior games under their belt, especially Mechathune. Because how often do you want to practice Mechathune? Not that often. I think we've seen the most mistakes.
I love Mechathune, TJ.
I know you do. I've seen you play it a ton.
I love Mechathune because I know how mad my opponent gets when I play it. And
And
also, I love the moment they realize I'm a Mechathune version of whatever deck I'm playing, and you can just tell. you can see the exact moment that their heart breaks, because when you start playing cards that are very unusual, like like, why are you drawing so many cards? And when they realize it, they like hover and they like pause, and then they get really upset. I sense it. I feel the anguish. And that's what I live for. You know what I've started becoming, TJ?
What?
I've started to become a player in Hearthstone that loves griefing people, but not by roping, not by BMing, but
Deck selection.
by deck selection, where they realize that they were screwed the entire time.
Like the Archivist Elysiana control shaman.
Yeah.
Go all the way to fatigue and someone, they're like, okay, he's out of stuff. He plays both walking fountains. I'm good.
Right, and that's why I think it's going to be really fun to see things from Saviors of Olddoom with the quest, because I want to see how the quest interacts with all these different combinations, right? 'Cause they're more universal. Anyways, we haven't actually been talking too much about the game state, and apologies there for people who are very interested in the micro plays back and forth. But the most important thing to focus on is the number from the right side of the screen, which is the number of cards in their decks. And Rase is very astutely holding on to 10 cards because he recognizes that, you know what, I can take advantage of the bombs that do get shuffled in, if any of them are, but also needs to be conservative with his resources. One thing that actually happened was Control Warrior ended up being outgassed a little bit by Bomb Warrior.
Yep.
Because Bomb Warrior was much more aggressive, and then Rase had to use like removal suboptimally.
And then needed it in later stages of the game.
Yeah.
Had to fight with minions. But yeah, it does come down to fatigue. It comes down to Purple managing his bombs. And I mentioned how I liked the way Slay played it yesterday. As soon as he realized that a pressure game plan wasn't going to work, he didn't pressure at all.
Yeah.
He just kind of accrued resources. He got cards out of his hand that are hard to use, like Brawl and Warpath, because he knows against Control Warrior those cards are even hard to use than against Bomb Warrior.
Right.
And just kept high-value cards in his hand, including bombs, and then unloaded them once Elysiana was played. He had tempo, he had damage advantage, his bombs were more likely to hit since it was a smaller deck. I liked the way he played it in that game. Now, this game is a little different for Purple because he does not have Dr. Boom Mad Genius. So
yeah, he's very behind in like the hero power wars, because Rase has had Dr. Boom for basically on curve, right? He played on 7.
Yeah.
And then it's been about 6 or 7 turns since then.
Yeah. It's not the biggest of deal because Rase has been forced to use cards because he has been... It's kind of a weird situation. He's been generating so much value with Dr. Boom, like developing boards, putting cards in his hand with Delivery Drone, that he's been forced to spend cards to not overdraw any important tools. And the benefit that he does have is that he doesn't really have any important tools left in his deck that he needs. He's got Archivist Elysiana in hand, and he has Dr. Boom Mad Genius already rolling. So it's like, what else is important? Omega Assembly, he's already got one of those. Omega Devastator, already there.
Yeah,
so he
losing
does have
the other
luxury.
copy of them would be painful. But
Yes.
Unlikely.
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 Yeah, and Purple, no reason for him to play bomb cards because Rase could easily keep his hand full. And also, he doesn't want to shuffle too many bombs in right now at the risk of them being at the bottom of the deck and Rase being able to Archivist keep up with fatigue by discarding bombs and then Archivist Elysianaing bombs away. That's where his advantage comes in the ultra late game, assuming cards are even, which currently they are. So Purple most likely gonna just wait for Dr. Boom and try and gain value from that. But other than that, just kind of play a thing a turn to not overdraw and go toe-to-toe and not get tempoed out of the game himself.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think Rase is feeling that pressure where it's like, should I be playing a card? Should I just not be playing a card? Do I, like, some of the cards in my hand just draw other cards? I mean, he's drawn both of his Militia Commanders and his Iliac, so this Town Crier is okay to free up space. And Purple hasn't been shuffling bombs in, because as you saw with yesterday's game, when you start getting bombs towards the bottom 10 cards of the deck, it starts to become a little bit tricky of like how you weigh shuffling bombs versus waiting for after Elysiana. I do think that this is around the time where you still could shuffle bombs in, but when we start to get around like 6 or 5 cards in, you could end up wasting a lot of the damage.
Yeah, it's tough because he doesn't really have any cards that he wants to throw away. Shield block gets him closer to fatigue, which he doesn't want, even though he does want to find Dr. Mad Genius. I wouldn't mind waiting like one more turn and like warpathing to try and pick it up, because it isn't that useful of a card. Because this gives Rase a lot of options. I guess Purple, with this play specifically, realizes that, well, Rase can't really afford to keep his hand full. Because if he keeps his hand full, he's not dealing with the minions that I have on board, which means that I could potentially make up the bomb damage anyway by attacking with these minions.
Yeah, it's all fair. It's all fair criticism, but at the same time, I think because Purple is lacking so much in any kind of damage and also just hero powers, it just feels like it's really hard for him to do anything. And I'm trying to think about a scenario that he can really pull himself out of here. And I'm having a difficult time understanding what his overall game plan is without Dr. Boom Mad Genius. I think it's kind of reflected in his body language too.
Yeah.
You can see that Purple is a fiddler, not necessarily the musical kind, excuse me. But he's a guy that likes to play with his hair, tweak, like, mess around with glasses, play with his headset, and it's a 1-to-1 correlation ratio. The more stressed he is, the more he plays.
Yeah.
Or the harder he's thinking.
Yeah.
When the game is going very smoothly, when the game feels like pretty straightforward and mapped out, Purple is less active. I feel like I'm on a National Geographic channel. Observe the wild beast.
In his natural time.
Twiddling with his hair. He's about to strike. He's lost. He's confused. He is soul searching. Is he the predator? No, he is the prey.
We should just cast the whole day like that.
Oh, well, I would probably have a lot more energy at the end of it. But you would probably be a little bit asleep.
I used to watch those nature documentaries to fall asleep, so that's probably true. Like, what was that? The ocean one? The Wild Ocean or something like that? Very soothing.
Sharks gone wild.
Especially the whales episode.
Oof.
It's just like ocean sounds, a smooth British voice, and...
I was not really into a lot of those things, but then my friend one day showed me Shark Week in high school.
Well, Shark Week is way different. Shark Week is all about adrenaline.
Yeah, it's quite the opposite of what you're describing.
Yeah.
But it is ocean related, so I'm trying my best here to make conversation.
Trying to relate to
Trying
my weird
very hard.
quirks.
Purple passing again, Race removing. Holding 10 cards and burning a card, absolutely not what he needs to be doing here. And tossing in the Augments of Alec. The thing about not throwing the Clockwork Goblin too is because it's what we're describing. Too many bombs shuffled in the bottom of the deck. Race could just easily take advantage of that and erase them, or do exactly what he's doing right now, which is removing without playing a single card. And you could burn those bombs and now climb ahead into fatigue. Like Race here probably, you could make a case for him not playing a card. There's still a lot left in the deck, but that's the danger. When you start getting to 5-card, 6-card range, Race shouldn't play a single card if Purple shuffled in extra bombs. Better late than never.
Yep.
All right, and that's a good consolation prize, although he would have to give up another card to do that delivery drone. Is the average delivery drone better than the card that Purple would draw? He says no.
I would think, I guess not.
What cards is he missing, TJ, that would be better than the average delivery drone?
Dinomatic.
Not that great in this matchup.
Town Crier.
Not that great in this matchup.
Shield Slam.
Very good in this matchup.
Omega Assembly.
Extremely good in this matchup.
Snip Snap.
Yes, all right. Well,
So there's Omega Assembly, Snip Snap. I think those alone are worth it. Because if you think of like Omega Assembly, it's Snip Snap's way better than the average delivery drone, and Omega Assembly is just, you get all 3 options from Delivery Drone, is essentially how you look at it.
Yeah.
So those 2 are better. And it's, if you think about that, it's a 2 out of 7. So I would say yes.
I love that
Maybe not the average card in his deck is better, but at this point, I don't think he needs to. Well, result-oriented thinking, the average mech is way better than Town Crier, especially when it doesn't draw a card.
Gets Delivery Drone right back. Bomb being mulled. Great play here from Rase. And that's exactly what we're describing, which is don't shuffle too many bombs. There is still one more bomb, extra bomb in the deck here from Rase.
Yeah.
But
and this is
not to do anything here.
Yeah, this is interesting for a couple reasons. One, Purple didn't.
This would be a good
He didn't
time
have to
for a
play the
master
bombs. He could have
plan.
warpathed. In one of the turns, he could have played Omega Devastator instead of shuffled bombs. It's like a risk-reward thing. It's like, well, Omega Devastator is such a good card in a vacuum. I'd rather shuffle bombs and have the risk of them being overdrawn and not getting value, because it goes twofold. One, when your opponent sits at 10 cards and overdraws a bomb, it offsets 1 card of fatigue because you're not drawing a card at all that turn, so you have 1 extra card in your deck, and it offsets the 5 damage. So it's more than 5 damage on average that you're missing because of the fatigue, which can be a big deal. And this is kind of a side effect of how Purple's hand is. He has a lot of cards that he wants to keep around and hasn't found great opportunities to throw away some of these other cards. And it was also a conscious decision to not play shield blocks, to not draw cards actively, which could have changed things. I mean, every little micro decision is playing into this, is giving Rase more of an edge,
Right.
because he's keeping up in even in fatigue, and he's having the ability to discard bombs, and he's forcing Purple into awkward situations.
Right, and he did a good job once again burning an unimportant card. Purple just lost 16 damage worth of health and life total by removing that weapons project.
Yeah. So now we're in a situation where everything's pretty even. Purple only has 1 Clockwork Goblet. That's the only bomb difference he has, plus the 1 bomb in the deck. So if you think about it that way, that's 10 damage. The health total is even. And outside of that, they're both operating with the same resources. They're both about even in fatigue, and they both have Elysiana. So throw every piece of analysis out the window now. Essentially, this game is going to come down to the players being able to fight for tempo and the quality of cards that they get from Elysiana.
Yeah, the early game's about to end in this matchup. And and that's also truthfully why we were kind of taking our time setting the big picture and
Okay,
debating about macro lines and matchups. And now as we head to the nitty-gritty, which is these players are relatively even on resources, which we understand that that's how you obviously play the matchup. They both have Elysiana ready to go. The question and the variables of this equation that fluctuate
This would be a
are
good time for a
the
master
tempo, or the amount of minions on the board, and the tempo that's able to be generated. More importantly, this is where removal tool ends up becoming fairly important on Race's end, because Purple will be trying to threaten Race, since Purple's the one that's slightly behind.
Yeah.
And now that Purple doesn't even have as much bomb damage as he could rely upon, because he threw away an Augmented Elic, he played both of his Reg Calibers. One of them didn't even get to attack at all.
Yeah.
The bomb damage Race is fairly even. So if Purple doesn't have any damage advantage, then what does he have? He has
A Clockwork Goblin.
a Clockwork Goblin.
Blastmaster Boom's gone. He used that early on in the game for 2 bombs. It was
Right.
diffused very easily and only got minimal amounts of damage in. So we're essentially at even footing here. And these are the kind of matchups that are the most
Okay,
interesting,
then.
because it does come down to Archivist Elysiana quality, but it also comes down to your choices from Archivist Elysiana
Right.
and how you want to play the late stages.
Yeah.
You can pick the biggest minion from every selection. You could pick a mixture of big minions and removal. You can pick cards that have effect. And
This
there
would
are
be a
some
good
things
time
that
for a
change the
master
outcome.
plan.
Like, let's say you get Blastmaster. Let's say you get another Archivist Elysiana. A crazy scenario, but one that we've seen before.
That is a possibility. And then Race also does have 2 Omega symbols. So if he does even go for his resource wars, he should have the final say there, assuming that it's about average.
Yep. Purple only has one copy of the Mega Assembly in his primary deck. It is still in his deck.
Rase picks up Shield Slam.
It's a pretty important tool. Maybe not for Rase, since he'll likely be the first person to play Elysiana. It's a pretty important tool for the person who goes second on the Elysiana train, because
This would be a good time for a master
you can Archivist
plan.
Elysiana Shield Slam in the same turn. Rase might be thinking about playing Elysiana this turn. The last card left in his deck, no, it's a Mega Assembly.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
I don't think you want to get rid of an Omega Assembly. The question becomes, though, what card do you play from hand if you're not playing Omega Assembly? He could Acolyte Pain Iron Begal, which is a play we saw him make yesterday in his matchup versus play. So I do like that. It's a great way to make hand space. You definitely don't want to draw extra cards.
I'm almost out of cards.
Mega Assembly finally making its way into the hand here. I do like this silence, and we've seen it a handful of times. Just need to get cards out of your hand, especially if he finds other ways to generate resources over time. So with this, Rase will have the ability to drop Elysiana with tempo on his side.
Yep.
This story
Last card in Purple's deck is Snip Snap.
Dragon's Roar, Barista Lynchin.
Oh.
That has an opportunity to add another Elysiana to the hand.
It won't survive because there's still two Shield Slams
You're right.
in Purple's.
How about Omega Devastator, though? You could drop Omega Devastator and get the Barista and get another one.
Yeah.
That sounds
Dragon's
really
Roar, though, is also very high value because it's two, on average, high value cards rolled into one. It
Fair
doesn't doesn't work like that way in Fatigue, but it is very high value. And if you picked it, Ember Scale Drake all of a sudden becomes quite more valuable as well, because 5 armor can offset a bomb damage,
Right.
offset one point of fatigue.
Oh my. Underbelly Ooze with
Ooh.
Warpath. He doesn't have a Warpath anymore, though.
No, he maybe offered it,
You thing.
but I think Silverhand Knight's probably just the best card.
5 mana 6/6.
Yeah. And these are all kind of poor options. Mossy Horror has the added benefit of being able to take out like Microbots. Emperor Cobra, once all removal is exhausted, can take out a big minion that your opponent picks from their Elysiana. So, Barista Lynchin, Spark Engine, Ember Scale Drake, Silverhand Knight, Mossy Horror. All things considered, pretty low value. Archivist Elysiana. The Barista Lynchin can make things interesting because he picked up a lot of Battlecry minions and has Omega Devastator, has Omega Assembly. Like here even, Rase could go Mega Devastator plus Barista Lynchin. Have 2 4/5s on board, get another Mega Devastator in hand.
I mean, I kind of like the Barista here just to collect another Omega Devastator.
Double pump Azarano, extra Star Whip, high mountain knife, room for mana spice, coming right up.
But this does give Purple the
Does sound like an admirable order at a Starbucks cafe. That's actually not true at all. Admirable only orders cold brew.
cold brew with milk.
Yeah.
That's his every time.
Yes. But when you get his water order, whew,
That's way more convoluted.
is not feeling it.
This does give him some information, though. It means that on his for his Elysiana, he knows that he has to pick very high value things because he knows that there's still another Barista Lynchin.
Well, he's really far behind also on the board. So I think in his mind, he needs to answer what's going on first because he doesn't want to take 8. Like, he plays... Okay, well, this also makes sense given that
Iron Begal was used.
Yeah, Iron Begal was used, and he just wants to get board presence. He wants to have a good board post Elysiana, and so Purple's willing to take one fatigue here. Sorry, another fatigue to try and win back the board, because he's maybe even assuming that his opponent will also go to fatigue, and this might come down to a pure resource battle. So then if you're Rase, you have Microbots, you have the Omega Devastator. I do think you want to accumulate as much value as you can from your hero power.
You do, but at the same time, you also want the max amount of tempo. Because at this stage, you're both operating with the same amount of resources.
Think he's going to brawl? I'd be very surprised if he went for that.
Oh, man.
Some pretty good stuff.
Oh, yeah. That is fantastic stuff.
See, the only thing I don't like about this brawl is that it doesn't give anything proactive for Rase, but, I mean, his hand has a lot of reactive stuff. He's got 3 Omega Devastators, and all of them have Rush, so probably in his mind, he's feeling pretty good.
Yep. And this is almost certainly an Archivist Feliciana turn from Purple. He needs a big one now.
Akali the Rhino is pretty big.
Oh, these are terrible.
Well, if you contextualize Overlord's Whip as a 3-mana deal 8 damage, it's not terrible. But if you look at the card text, it's pretty bad.
Okay.
Violet Warden, I guess? Just like a beefy minion.
Yep.
Maligos. Oh, or?
Phantom Militia.
Phantom Militia.
Maligos, you can't fit in hero power. You can't do anything else the turn you played. It's very difficult.
It's just a big body.
Yeah.
The big butt.
Phantom Militia is 3 2/4s on a single turn. Okay, Beryllium Nullifier. So, Akali the Rhino, Ironfur Grizzly, Violet Warden, Phantom Militia, Beryllium Nullifier. I think, all things considered, their Elysianas are pretty even.
Oh, the Boom Ship. So the Boom Ship has the ability to pull out some really big stuff.
They can pull out Akali the Rhino, which pulls in Akali the Rhino.
Right,
if
and
it overkills.
And, you know, Akali drawing Akali isn't the worst thing here. It's just the fact that Akali gets buffed, which is really big.
Yeah. Purple already shaking his head.
Dude, Purple is like a Sims character. His emotions are so emphatic that it always feels like like he's just delivered the worst news he's ever heard.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how every character on The Sims feels.
Yeah.
I played the game fairly recently on mobile.
Just got delivered the news that he's pretty hungry.
Yeah, or I mean, I feel him on that too, because
I'm hungry also.
this is a match for playoffs, right? This is a high stakes back and forth. Whoever takes this best of 3. Oh, nice pickup here for Purple.
Yeah. This is essentially a free Violet Warden, because it doesn't pull the minion out of your deck. It pulls a copy of the minion from your deck.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Violet Warden, not that awful of a card sometimes to get in some other forms of like Power of Creation and whatnot, because it's just big body to get the taunt stuff in the way. Security Rover, here's probably the best choice for your Rase. What I'm starting to worry about is whether or not Rase has enough mana to spend to get past all this stuff in the future turns.
Yeah.
Right now, he's still really good, but one thing I don't like about 6-cost cards is that you can't play 2 of them in a single turn in case you need to swing the board. And I get that Rase is trying to like accumulate the hypothetical ultimate resource toolkit so that he can answer anything from Purple. Just have to be mindful of sometimes if you're too far behind and you only can play 1 or 2 cards, you often fall so far behind in tempo that you get squeezed out of the game.
Yeah. I do still think Rase has a pretty significant advantage here because of the resources. He does have a lot of ways to fight back fatigue, or to fight back tempo because of Omega Devastators. He has 2 more in hand, has the chance for another one with Omega Assembly, has a chance for another one with the second Burst Solution instead.
Yeah, it was kind of amusing that for like half a second I was thinking, what could Lord Walker Cho really do? Lord Walker Chu. which honestly would make a lot of sense too if you pronounce it that way. I got into Chang once when someone read my name. I'm like, there's not even an NG in it. How did you even get that?
I've always struggled to pronounce your last name.
I'm the lore walker.
The one syllable is just very hard.
It's fair enough. But so is Sato's last name. It's one syllable.
His
Okay
is
then.
harder.
It's, well, okay, yeah. I mean, it's like 1.5 syllables. It's Welcher.
The joke there is that Sottle, after a lot of his words, puts an ER that he doesn't think is there.
Yeah, Sato for some reason doesn't think he adds R's to words, but when we confront him about it, he doesn't do it. It's funny because it's like the way we tease Arables because he really thinks it's not, but it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't realize that his name is Simon or Welcher.
Simoner. Did you mean to name your son Summoner? No, Simoner.
Okay then.
If you just look at the hand quality right now, like, Rase has 5 relatively
he has
good sized
He has
minions.
minions. If you just even count the minions, like he's got 6 minions versus like 4 in Purple's deck. Kali the Rhino though.
Looking for a Mega Devastator.
Ooh. So now what you want to do is get a Galvanizer.
Yeah, I think he just has to kill this.
I mean, those are all pretty good stuff. But this is the most effective by far on the board immediately.
Yeah. Mecha'thun is too hopeful in a situation like this. It's way too difficult
But if it was
to get value from.
down to the last few cards,
If that delivery zone was taken when Purple had no cards left in his deck, sure.
Maybe.
I can see that. If the health totals were reasonable enough and he wasn't too far behind on tempo, I can see that being a choice.
I think that would be the case if Purple
This would
had
be
it
a
with
good
3
time for a
cards
master
left. Because he needs to actually dump his hand first. He can't just pick Mecha'thun when he's in Fatigue, because then when he shield blocks, he's like drawing into Fatigue.
Yep.
So Mecha'thun would be a good pick if Rase didn't have that big of a board, which is not going to happen very often, because Rase wants to develop now. And then if Purple has enough card and buffer room to do that.
Okay then.
Rase picks up Ember Drake. Not that great in this position. Trying to think about what's the best way for him to answer this. I think he doesn't want to toss Security Rover in just to get a 2-3. He could go wide on the board, but then he's giving value to Purple's Brawl.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Ready, sir.
Mega Assembly. Finds a 2 damage mech, although all things considering, pretty low value mechs.
Yeah. This does offset a good amount of health. But
Yes, health is really important because it's almost as if you are a card deeper in Fatigue. If you take it like a little bit abstractly, Fatigue only really matters based off how much damage that you take to the final tick. And so if you say take an extra 6 or 7 damage, that's as if you are 2 cards deeper in Fatigue if the game goes to about 3 or 4. But as Control Warrior versus Bomb Warrior matchups sometimes get, when you go to like 8 or 9 damage Fatigue, it's like 1 extra card.
yeah. Fatigue right now is actually very even. Even though Rase has 3 of those cards in his deck, Purple will start at 3 Fatigue, I think.
I believe so.
I think he took 2 points of Fatigue before he played Arctis Elysiana.
Yes, the way the interaction works in Hearthstone is that your deck remembers what you did last summer. And so even if you take fatigue damage and you know, put more cards into your deck by shuffling things in, you still ultimately have to continue where you left off. I do believe that it also is the same if you replace your hero with somebody. I remember Jirax's was one thing that people were thinking about. Does it reset your fatigue? And I don't think it does.
No. Well, this does draw the second Akali from the dead, which I don't really know if Purple necessarily wants. 10-10, excuse me. Because it does draw him deeper fatigue, but he offsets that fatigue by having a 10-10 with Rush for 8 mana. which is way better than the Burly thing. Burly
Man.
Yeah, there it is. The 9-mana.
Oof. So the past few Omega Assembly / delivery drones have not been that great for Rase. Been kind of making do with mediocre options in this position. I might take the Tempo tool. Faithful Lumi is at its core a 1-mana 2/2 versus 3-mana 1/4, which might be a little bit clunkier to use. I guess the upside is Demolisher has more potential damage. But that, I mean, that thing is not really doing it. Also, Purple's Hecklebot is something to account for as well. The longer he waits for Hecklebot, the less useful it's going to be.
Yep.
So I think he should probably pull the trigger now, because there's a chance that there's a spell in Race's deck instead of a minion, and you might not pull anything from Fatigue Race. Oh, big time draw here for the Boom Reaver.
Ooh.
Although we do have to account for what is remaining in his deck.
There's
a Phantom Militia.
Phantom Militia, and
I believe there might be another Violet Warden because this was the one that was drawn naturally.
there is a Violet Warden. Then the last card is...
This Hecklebot is very important. And now Purple has Tempo. And Rase has to answer with his Omega Devastator? I mean, Race's stuff is actually not very good right here.
he can Omega Devastator Burst of Lynching, though. He also gets the Spark Drill back. Or not Spark Drill, the Spark Engine. Because it is a Battlecry minion as well. And he's fatigued. I believe, no, he wouldn't quite be at a full hand. Be at 9, but it wouldn't matter regardless.
Coming right up.
I mean, Purple knew that this was a possibility. He was trying to pull it, too. It's something that we forgot, which was, I think he was trying to yoink the Burst of Lynching.
Yep.
Oh, he draws the other Violet Warden. So now his last cards are Phantom Militia. He did draw with both Ironfur Grizzlies.
And now that's both... what is the last card?
There was one more that we're forgetting that we can't remember right now.
Brilliant Nullifier.
Which is also very good.
Yeah.
That's a ton of statistics.
Oh, yes. It sure is.
I do like this bump. I think Purple recognizes that Race might still have some removal that he's not accounting for.
Yeah.
There's 2 cards that he doesn't know of, which are the 2 Mossy Horrors.
This is weaker to the Omega Devastator that Purple knows is in hand. Because he would have the potential there to... I guess he's trading anyway.
Yeah, I mean, even the Spark Engine.
Yeah.
He knows is a possibility.
Yeah. So I guess the trade is correct in that sense. Because he would assume that Race has way better ways to deal with it than Omega Devastator, and I don't think Race wants to part way with the last Omega Devastator.
Right. And that's where I think the Phantom Militia ends up being really good, because when you're trying to fight this resource battle back and forth, but he's not accounting for the Mossy Horror.
Oh, Mossy Horse a direct counter to Phantom Militia.
Yeah, but it also takes away Race's own board. But it is indeed a direct counter.
If Purple's reaction to not necessarily direct counters like Burst and Lynching, what's his reaction going to be when his Phantom Militia board gets Mossy Horror?
Right, and
Oh,
so the thing is, he knows 5 out of the 7 cards in Race's hand.
Yes.
He doesn't know that there are 2 Mossy Hearts. There's one factor that's still preventing him from like pulling the trigger on, say, this Brawl.
This would be a good time.
Oh,
for
never
a
mind.
man.
He's just gonna go for it. He says, you know what? Even if I don't know what that last card is, chances are I should be able to beat it anyways with a Kali 10-10 Rush. And that logic makes sense to me too.
Yeah.
This armor, by the way, is not insignificant.
No, not at all. This is 6 armor that Purple is giving over.
What is also significant is that Race has the weakest hero power in this position. Oh, he reveals the Mossy Horror because Purple doesn't know that he has Phantom Militia.
Oh, so now Purple's just going to wait until second Mossy Horror is played until he plays the Phantom Militia.
Right, so then he should not play... Oh, the Beryllium Nullifier is so good in this spot, too. Because you zap the 2/7 and the Beryllium Nullifier with the buff
And also...
rushes in.
Rase can't play Omega Devastator because he knows there's a 10-10 Akali in hand.
Yes.
So he kind of has to save that because if Purple just drops a 10-10 Akali, he has no way to deal with it in hand outside of Delivery Drone into something.
Not enough tempo.
Yeah, but they're even at fatigue. Rase takes 2 damage this turn. I believe Purple will take 3 damage next turn because he took 2 points of fatigue before he played a Luciana.
Right.
2 hits.
This Omega Devs. So Rase says, I need to stop taking damage now.
Yep.
And he's going to hope that he gets Delivery Drone. But looks like Purple is going to outlast Rase. And, you know, small little things like the Moss Hero and the Phantom Militia. So now Purple's like, okay, I should have this mapped out. But he sees the Delivery Drone from Rase, so he's a little bit scared. Maybe instead of the Akali, you drop the Violet Warden? You know that he can generate damage through the 1/1 in the hand.
I think, honestly, you have to just force him to get something valuable from Delivery Drone. The problem is I just don't... I don't know.
I like Akali as an answer to a big threat.
Okay. But, yeah.
That's just my personal preference because I like to play a little safer in this spot.
Okay, then.
Yeah, I guess you could Violet Warden and then pre-trade.
Yeah. Because the other train of thought is the more pressure you put on your opponent, the less time they have to flip a hero power into Delivery Drone to be the miracle out, right? Like a Mecha situation.
That fuse thing.
Also, the earlier you play Akali, the less chance that they have to have Mechathune come out and rush into the 10-10 in case he ends up picking it up.
Yeah, at this point, it's going to be very hard to play Mechathune, though, because the 2 shield blocks that they have to dump are too much fatigue.
Right.
But Purple going to hope that this Delivery Drone is not Omega Devastator.
Mega Devastator, or something equivalent. Oh, wow. I mean, that's really good, but that only keeps Rase in the game. It doesn't win him it.
Yeah. And Purple got his own Delivery Drone, and he has kind of that final say, because Rase is reacting to what Purple does.
Yeah, Purple's reacting very strong.
7. He's counting.
He's counting
the Mega Devastators. 7 of them.
All right, Purple with his undelivery drone. Okay. All right, well, the Coppertail boss is the strongest. I was thinking, what is the validity of picking up an armor tool? But I think the 4 damage.
They're actually matching hero powers, which is funny. They've matched hero powers the last 3 turns.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gonna play the Mossy Horde.
Right, because he doesn't know about the Phantom Militia. Purple's done a good job holding it, and because of this, assuming another Delivery Drone doesn't come out here, Purple should be able to
have the last minion.
Yeah. So you want to play Phantom Militia here? I think you might want to hold still. It's close. The unfortunate thing about Coppertail, Imposter, and Hero Power is that you only have 4 mana left, and 1 Phantom Militia is very weak. You know, his last 4 cards should be Shield Block, Ember, Scale Drake, and Spark if Purple is doing the optimal hand tracking.
Yep.
So your opponent will have 5 damage guaranteed with the Hero Power and the 2/7, and a Spark. So I think this is actually a safe spot to go for Phantom Militia. I think Purple doesn't want to give up the 3 damage zap, though, because that is fairly relevant, given that he's 8 damage behind on the Fatigue Race.
Oh, I love that fuse thing.
So, I think it'd be Violet Warden Zap, or it's 3 Phantom Militias.
I just can't make up my mind which one's better.
I think this is better because the difference will be the hero powers. He gets Kaboom, which is not what he wants, but that's okay because he has a backup plan. His backup plan in the event of Kaboom is Phantom Militia.
Yeah.
So that was okay. And that's partially why I think the Phantom Militia play, or the hold, is better because he's offsetting the chance that he gets a bad roll off of the hero power swap, which is what you want to see. And now because of it, he also set up an easy value trade with the Violet Warden. So things end up panning out. Also, I just realized how ironic it is that Purple got a card named Violet Warden. More on that later.
He actually is going to use Kaboom here to clear up the board because he knows this is the last threat.
Yes, and there's no generation from Rase, right? He has Flash.
Yep.
He even can play this for tempo. He could. I think it's fine. Because he's the theory is that these Phantom Militias played at optimal maximum value is that you want to play that when you don't have turns to fill up your mana. But let's say he plays Delivery Drone. He wants to free up his mana as much as possible, or he wants to go for it. And now he sees Rase picks up the Delivery Drone, so there's still a chance that he might get out-muscled here. Purple's like, should I go full in onto the board here? And this is almost like a solvable math equation, but Purple only has 70 seconds. And he's not even going to think that much about it. He's just going to load up onto the board and hope for no Kaboom.
Even Kaboom, like, it doesn't really do anything Oh, he gets Delivery Drone. Okay, so he matches it.
Okay, so now Rase, his last hope. Mechathune!
He doesn't have time.
He doesn't have time, though.
He has to play both shield blocks, and he's going to take 9, then 10.
Right, and the Mechathune has a die. We forget about that's the hardest part.
Yeah, it has to attack into like 5 things in order to die. Yeah, he took 8 points of fatigue this turn, I believe. Yep, so he'll take 9 and 10 just from the shield blocks alone, and then 11 from after that. So that's 30 damage just from that alone.
His Mechathune! But he can't play it. It's an unplayable card right now. So is the Boom Reaver. His best card for the tempo is Nightmare Amalgam. And that's what he's going for. It's a deal 3 damage. He has the life advantage too.
Yeah. Rase is taking 9 here. He takes 6 next turn, goes down to 11. That's game.
Yeah, I think the Kaboom can't pull Rase out of the situation.
Nope, he is dead this turn. The Zap Hero Power plus the fatigue damage that Rase takes next turn. Wow.
We went the distance.
We did.
And that is going to be game 1 to Purple in this crucial playoff deciding best of 3. Oh my god, we went to the tie. We went to the turn timer.
Wait, what?
But Purple is the winner because he has more life.
No,
right?
In game 1, both players win. It only goes to health if it's in an unresolvable game state. In every other situation, a tie is a win to both players.
Even though the very next tick was about to be lethal. Well, we declared him the winner graphically. That's kind of hard to take back, TJ.
We have to wait for an admin decision on that one, but in the rules, a tie in a resolvable match state, which means that one player is not going to be awarded a win. Both players are awarded a win. So in a game 1 of a specialist best of 3 series, the rules state that both players in the event of a tie are awarded a win. So if that was a tie, then that is a win for both players, and the series is tied 1-1. The fact that Rase takes lethal damage from fatigue on the turn of tie that's not our call, Dan.
Right. Well, I mean, that ends up being the case where he stalled long enough for Omega Devastator number 8 to come out and to keep him alive. We're going to go ahead and take a break as we get ready for game number 2, and we'll find out what ends up happening once the final ruling based off this very unlikely tie scenario.
Rising again, darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the market. Mysticism. There should be scorching deserts, adventure, monster of narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save.
Well met, friend. Ooh. Let's get this over with.
I win!
Oh, what an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
rising again, darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There surely scorching deserts, adventure, my spirit narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave, evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save. Oh,
Well met, friend. Ooh. Let's get this over with.
I win!
Oh, what an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters for the Americas. It's Super Sunday, and we do want to update you guys and apologize for the delay and appreciate all of your patience. We have gotten a final ruling. Purple and Rase have been awarded a game win and a game loss, so it'll be tied 1 game apiece going into directly game number 2. Although game number 2 will be the deciding match, so it's effectively a game number 3.
Yeah, that's correct. Based off our official rules, in a tie situation, no matter the circumstances, if a game reaches turn limit, both players are awarded a win-loss.
Right. This is, of course, the rule book to usually address things like a long Swiss tournament, where if someone ties, in the interest of time, we do not want to have games 2 and 3 potentially also go to the turn timer, and as a result, the Swiss portion gets held up dramatically.
Yep.
And that rule book is consistent throughout.
Yeah, and now, for instance, if that same situation were to happen this game, that ruling is for game 1s. Or if a player is up 1-0. If a series is tied in a best-of-3 situation, like, for example, this game right here, Rase and Purple are tied at 1 apiece.
It'd only be appropriate.
Yes, if this game were to go to turn limit, that's when the rule kicks in, where the player with the higher combined total of health and armor would be awarded the win, because the previous situation where both players awarded win and loss would not resolve the series. It would go to the total amount of health and armor. So, you know, if this game for 2 games in a row were to go to turn limit, that would be the scenario.
Yeah, that was a rule that I was referencing at the very beginning of all this tiebreaker madness, which, like I said, TJ, it's only fitting that in a deciding match to break the tie for 3rd place, we had a tie in game number 1 and a tie for game number 2.
These guys are just so evenly matched
well,
that they can't even beat each other in a game.
I do feel like the importance of having the 8 Omega Devastators really kicks into full gear now. Like people who may be tuning in and not understanding what was going on. Game number 1, it was a tie between Rase and Purple, but Rase accumulated 8 Omega Devastators through Discovers and also through his Elysiana, which allowed him to play Barista Lynchin, which gives you a copy of any Battlecry minions on your side of the field, aka another Omega Devastator. So I think that alone has kind of caused Purple a lot of heartache. You can see like his emotional distress because of it.
All right, Dan, but there's another twist thrown into this. That twist being, Rase has decided to queue his primary deck again.
He's not going for his
He's not going for his
Mecha'thun deck.
Mecha'thun deck.
I think he learned from Zalay yesterday.
He learned from Zalay, but also the fact that, as we talked about before the match took place, Purple in his tertiary deck, which he is playing, has a Tinkmaster Overspark.
Right.
Which makes it almost nearly impossible for Rase to reliably get his Mecha'thun combo off. Reason being is because he's playing the Mecha'thun Undertaker version, which the standard way you win with that version is to play Mecha'thun early, have it die, and then Undertaker assumes the death route of Mecha'thun, and you in a rage devastate the Mecha'thun.
Right.
The only way to get around that is by flooding your board the turn you play Mecha'thun to reduce the likelihood of Tinkmaster Overspark, or by pulling Mecha'thun from Geppetto Joybuzz, which is not a very reliable situation. So Rase has decided that his best course of action is to play his primary deck again. He thinks that's his best chance to win. Now, Purple doesn't know this. As we've talked about many times throughout the season of Grandmasters, when you go into a second or third game in Specialist, you do not have to announce which deck you've swapped to or if you've swapped at all. So this information might be hidden to Purple, which could change the way that he plays the matchup. He may try and draw aggressively to find his answers. He may try and draw aggressively to find his Tinkmaster Overspark in the event that Purple were to, or that Rase would play his Mecha'thun deck. He does not know. And he's drawing aggressively with Mecha'thun, or with Harrison Jones, which is exactly what Rase wants. So Purple does not know.
I don't know if it's necessarily what Rase wants to see, to be honest. I think that
I think this is exactly what he wants.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think he doesn't want that because he can't answer this 5-4. He's going to take too much damage. And when you look at the context of Purple's hand, the game might not get to fatigue, DJ.
That's true. That's very true.
I think that your primary game plan as the Bomb Warrior should be to be aggressive against Control Warrior. I think that when you have when you have Dr. Boom Mad Genius, I think that you are allowed to take a passive game plan. But generally speaking, it's just better for him to be aggressive. What's the point of playing Karen Bloodhoof and Geppetto Joybuzz and all these different things if your game plan is just to take it slow?
Sure. I can see that.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Of course, another thing to consider is exactly what you're saying. Like, maybe Rase is ultimately happy that he drew cards, but only under the condition that he's able to survive to that point.
Yes.
Because he's taking 4 power off the board, but Purple still gets to get 5 damage in and change. I mean, this is a position where if I'm Purple, you just drop the Tempo Ziliax.
Probably.
Because now you get to shuffle
too much mana.
Yeah, you get to shuffle 2 bombs next turn into Blastmaster Boom.
Yeah.
And you know, even if your opponent had Dynamatic, you still get 3 damage in. Oh, that second Warpath though.
It clears this board, but it also Rase will not have an answer to Blastmaster Boom. So it is likely that Purple will just be able to snowball this game out of control. He's at 24. He's going to take more damage next turn. He's probably going to play Dr. Boom Mad Genius into an Augmented Ella Clockwork Goblin turn.
Yeah.
Which means that he's taking even more damage. There's a chance for more bombs to be shuffled in. And then Blastmaster Boom could just be the game ender.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying, TJ, with how it's good for him to ultimately have the resource advantage and fatigue. But I don't think he has the luxury of getting to that point. In fact, I don't think he even wants to play Dr. Boom Mad Genius at this point. I think he wants to kill at 3-4, but he can't really do it without giving up his second weapons project.
Yeah.
And by doing that, giving up second weapons project feels like you're also accepting 16 damage from the Wrench Caliber #2, because you do have 1 Harrison Jones to stop the first Wrench Caliber.
Yeah, he could go for just like Ziliax over the Clockwork Goblin and armor up, but
Oh, man.
oh,
And this lines up very nicely, although Purple's like, okay, you have Dr. Boom Mad Genius on 7.
Wow, who is that handsome?
Both players unhappy to see the Boom on 7. Who's ahead? I think the board tells you the story that you need to hear.
yeah. Even if Rase were to be able to clean up his entire board, for instance, if he had a Brawl, he would take on average 10 damage from these boom bots because the average damage is 2.5, and he would take whatever damage was left over from whatever survived the Brawl. So he'd be under way too much pressure with
This would be a good
good
time
amount
for
of
a
bombs
master
in as well. I guess
plan.
2 bombs in his deck. And he currently just does not have an answer to this. He can shield block and try and dig for Brawl. He can zap plus execute. If he shield blocks, he still has the opportunity to zap plus execute. And the benefit that Rase does have, at least with the way his hand could play out, is that he has Omega Devastator plus Ziliax to get that burst of 7 healing
Right.
on the following turn.
Zap Execute also just shows Purple that he's playing his primary deck.
Ah, yeah, you're right.
I mean, I think Purple probably already suspected this, but because, you know, he probably like credits Rase to be a good enough player to know that he shouldn't play his secondary deck with Mechathune with Tinkmaster Overspark in hand.
Yeah.
So I think Purple is like not too surprised, but it's just easy confirmation. A Kaboom picked up. There's no mechs, sorry, there's no non-mechs on the board. Purple going for maximum pressure. Rase could be dead in a couple turns here. He does have some life gain through the form of Weapons Project Ziliax. He'd prefer not to use it.
Yeah.
He also has that shield block, but shield block only stalls. He needs the hero power, but he doesn't want to take this much damage. In fact, he could die if he just hero powers and all of them hit for 4.
Yeah.
Extremely unlikely.
I think here you want to Ziliax the Dynomatic, then Kaboom, and then Weapons Project down the Clockwork Goblin. You kind of want these, even though Ziliax could gain more health, I think that the health that it would gain from absorbing potentially multiple boom bots is higher. And also the fact that Purple could get through without
Okay,
having to
then.
use a minion to trade into it. He has 9 mana to be able to do that. He can Omega Assembly plus shield blocks the following turn. I think that's his best chance of surviving.
Ooh. Okay. Honestly, about average.
That's almost exactly average.
Yeah.
4 boombots dealt 9 damage. The average would have been 10 in that scenario.
Yeah. And now he restores a little bit of life, but he's at a break point. That is a scary place to be.
Yeah.
And even after he gets past this 3-2, he still can deal 3 damage. Oh, man.
It's
Defend the gates!
Rase has to be incredibly proud of himself for holding on
Yes.
to the weapons
That
project.
Weapons Project restraint was godlike, but Rase needs more than just patience. He needs time.
3 bombs in the deck.
Dynamatic being drawn.
So Weapons Project is happening.
Yes.
And so he's 8 mana left. Delivery Drone plus Omega Assembly leaves him with 5 mana.
Dynamatic. Does he want a shield block, though, instead?
I think you do. If you Weapons Project and clear off this Clockwork Goblin, you go up to 10.
Dynamatic is good because you can avoid taking any damage from it.
Oh yeah, you can trade over the Clockwork Goblin and just leave your Dynamatic damaged.
So I think I just hero power Weapons Project and Dynamatic. You go up to 13.
Yep.
Turnium Rover is good here. More armor, the better.
And if this game does go long, Rase has a significant fatigue advantage.
It's really going to be decided, I think, before the fatigue situation.
It's possible.
Because Purple still has the Omega Assembly. I would understand that to be the case if Purple was almost out of resources entirely, but he's really not. And the 6 armor is cosmetic, right? Like, the idea is that the Weapons Project is offset by the 6 damage gained to your opponent's weapon. Picked up some cheap stuff. Augmented being at 1 mana could have been relevant, but he'd already played 1 Clockwork Goblin, 1 Red Caliber, so he has to accumulate the other resources for it.
I can still be relevant if he picks up another Clockwork Goblin from, say, like Omega Assembly.
Yeah.
He could play all of it. He could play Wrench Caliber, Clockwork Goblin. I don't know. It doesn't mean anything because the 2 mana doesn't help at all.
Well, you set up the Wrench Caliber beforehand. And
Yeah.
And then you can go for it.
Yeah. Then 3 Clockwork Goblins, I guess.
3
I don't know.
Clockwork Goblins, that would have been nuts. Shield Slam here, put your opponent down. Restrict your opponent. But I guess Dynamatic also makes sense here. Things are slowing down. You can see the Dr. Boom Mad Genius coming into a big effect here for Rase. Purple getting Rase down to 7 life, not enough. 2 Omega Assemblies.
Yep, that was a change Purple made in his tertiary deck. Did add the 2nd copy of Omega Assembly. Also has a Karen Bloodhoof somewhere in the deck.
Yeah, not having Rush makes it a lot more difficult for Purple to fight back. Doesn't mean he won't try, though.
Yep.
And remember, the bombs could change a lot. There's still 3 bombs in the deck. Rase is at 16 life. 1 bomb being drawn. That's not good. Last Master Boom has already been played, so every bomb that Rase draws is not ideal. There's no silver lining to it. Shield block. Turning her over, getting armor. This is just small advantages being built up here for Rase and more frustration for Purple. Purple needs to find his own Dr. Boom Mad Genius. Somehow, once again, the bottom 10 cards of his deck, maybe even further.
Yeah. Last game, I believe he played it with 7 cards left in the deck, which is oddly fitting for Dr. Boom, but...
Makes sense. It should be the 7th card or the 7th to last card.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that
Rase debating about if he wants to fight for more tempo early on. He might be giving extra value for Purple to get things off of like Brawl or Warpath. It's definitely worth thinking about. Or did Rase disconnect? His webcam is basically frozen, or he is very good. Okay. It looks like he did disconnect. We'll have to get him to reconnect momentarily.
What else can they throw at us in this series, Dan?
Yeah.
Please no more earthquakes.
A controversial.
Please no more earthquakes.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, you know, all jokes aside, I really hope everyone's okay, but they got impacted by the earthquake. All right, looks like we're stuck for at least 30 seconds to disconnect, but we can stay here for a while. Purple just drawing the Kieran Bloodhoof. His hand is looking pretty good for aggression.
Yeah.
He has the Mecha'thun, he has the Karen, he has the Omega Devastator for really cheap. I think the big thing is that he's missing the Dr. Boom Mad Genius.
Yep.
So that's what it is. Coming up after this, we have another Warrior Mirror. It's going to be Dog going up against... Sorry, I have to pull it up real quick. Because I was focused so much on this matchup, TJ, that I kind of lost my bearings.
The Dog versus...
we have Dog versus Monsanto.
versus
I remember,
Monsanto.
because it was a potential first-place deciding match.
Yes.
Not going to be the case. I think Monsanto's locked in for second. Dog's locked in at first.
Yep.
And then we have Muzzy versus Strifecrow, which is a Control Warrior versus Burgle Rogue. Then we have Sam versus Mage versus the Rogue. Then ETC, Zolay, and Amnesiac versus Bloodyface. Are you looking forward to any of these matches?
Honestly, nothing has any playoff indications, but I think the one that I'm most looking forward to would probably have to be Saiyan versus Nalgidon. Not because it's the only non-warrior, but just because I feel like Rogue versus Mage lends itself to have some of the crazier games, or at least the more fast-paced games, where every turn maximizing your ability to deal damage as the Rogue, and every turn maximizing your ability to get on the board quickly and get a big swing turn as the Mage. I think that one's very interesting. Also, because both players have so many card generation effects with Mana Cyclone and with like Hedgeclan Burglar, Blink Fox, Lackeys, and none of those matchups are ever the same, right? You never watch a mage and rogue mirror or mage and rogue matchup and think, wow, I feel like I've seen this before. It's always kind of a unique effect. So I think that's the one I'm looking forward to the most. Also, Monsanto and Dog, even though it's a warrior mirror matchup, I feel like because these guys are at the top of the standings and they know that their series is resolved, we might see some fast and loose play, if you know what I mean, which in a warrior mirror can sometimes be very interesting because it's just like they both play super aggressive and throw bombs into each other's deck.
Fair enough, yeah. It is a bomb warrior mirror as
Yes.
opposed to one having a control warrior plan versus the other. We got word that if Rase cannot reconnect, he is awarded a game loss. Regames are not acceptable in this position.
Nope.
So if that's for Race's sake, I would hope he could reconnect because that would be a very anticlimactic way to end the series. After all that drama being set up from game number 1, having the tension of that tie/win-loss for both players, and then it's like, well, just kidding, my internet connection went out and I can't play. But stuff like that happens, which is why you have to really ensure that you have good internet connections.
Yeah.
But as many people, including Brian Kilber, will let you know, is that internet connectivity is sometimes even variants that you can't beat no matter how good of a player you are.
Yeah, or no matter how many times you call your service provider.
Yes, because one of my favorite things to do to troll Brian Kilber, because there's not many things you can troll him about. This guy is nigh unbreakable. But one of the things that you can easily get him very riled up about is his internet problems, because it's a very personal matter. It affects his livelihood, and I think Rase can really relate to that in this situation.
Yeah. I can relate to it too, but more so for the fact that my router can only go in one place in my house, and my living room where my TV is, which connects wirelessly where I watch TV, Netflix the most, is the furthest point in the house away from the router.
Ooh. So you have a weak
So
signal.
sometimes there's a weak signal.
Run a long wire.
Well, that's what I do for my computers, but it is very far.
Buy like a really long cable for like $30.
It's very far, and it would have to go through a lot of weird areas in the house, like over the cabinetry in the kitchen.
Yeah,
it has to go
over
through
the swing.
It has to go through, over the swing, through the underground tunnel that I use to escape my house. Just a lot of weird things.
We were given notification that Rase has 30 seconds left to reconnect. I think this is also to account for, different possibilities. You disconnect too long, stream delay catches up, and then all of a sudden competitive integrity is called into question.
Yep.
So Rase, unless he's able to connect,
Worst is like watching
10 seconds. Whoa. You guys thought this was going to be a Warrior Mirror stream. This is a countdown stream. And with that, we've crossed the 5-minute mark, so we're going to hear back from the admins momentarily on the fate of Rase. But if this ends up coming down to basically another technicality, I got to voice my disappointment, not because of anybody's fault here. It's just the disappointment that I was anticipating this to be the match of the day, and this is not how you'd want it to go down.
Yeah. Especially in our featured matchup.
Yeah,
and
it's just you feel bad for Rase.
Yeah.
Because obviously he would much rather prefer to play his game than disconnect and lose automatically.
Yep. But we'll
Sucks.
See. We'll see. Yeah, it has to pass that 5-minute, and we're at the 5-minute half point now. So just waiting on the final ruling, but we can see that he has not reconnected yet. So, well, I was hoping for the tie again.
It was
And it
definitely
comes
not.
down
It
to
was
health total.
absolutely not going down.
We get to
a tie
flex
TV.
yet another rule.
It was a feast or famine play by Purple, and I think he was close. Like as much as we could argue that Dr. Boom at Genius was pulling it back, and he did get that blast shield right beforehand. I'm just looking at the quality of the hands here from Purple, and I think that he would outgas Rase because Rase has a couple of cards in his hand that really didn't do much. Like Zeliciana, and then like Purple has Mechthune, Cairn, Security Rover, Omega Devastator, Augmented Elec, Omega Assembly, even a Tinkmaster Overspark to disrupt any like big taunt or like if he's able to accumulate things. So I think that Purple is in a really good position because he could out-resource him.
Yeah. I was just gonna go on to a different point of saying like we talked about his tertiary deck, but this is it contextualized. This is Purple, the deck that he did queue up, which
and he drew all of his key cards.
Yeah, he did. Geppetto Joybuzz drew that. Karen Bloodhoof was drawn right before the disconnect took place, and Tinkmaster Overspark, which seems to be there specifically as a anti-Mechathune tech. because silence is not enough, because once Mechathune dies, it still goes into the Undertaker pool. You need a transform effect in. Tinkmaster Overspark is really the only way that Warrior has to do that. So I really like the choice. I really like the choice there from Purple.
Yeah. Race's hand was Archivist Elysiana, upgradable Framebot, Town Crier, Brawl,
Clockwork Goblin,
and
Elysiana.
It's like, yeah, it's not that great stuff.
Did have a Shield Slam, but with bombs in the deck, maybe you take too much damage before Shield Slam even comes online.
Well, my thing is that he doesn't have enough removal for all these threats.
Or enough tempo to try and gain back. Like,
Right,
even
exactly.
enough mechs to fight back on the board. And we're sitting here just trying to, you know...
Well, we're stuck in an awkward position where we're waiting to hear back because obviously the players are discussing things back and forth. But now we're reaching the 8-minute mark, and I think very closely we'll be soon catching up to the stream in real time since all this chaos happened. In fact, I believe the stream already has watched the tie go down, and they're currently waiting to see what's going on.
Yep.
So, you know, we're doing our best to stall for time. But in the meantime, I do want to update you guys on what's happening. We do want to send a congratulations out to people who did qualify for Asia Pacific and for Europe. I believe Alutimu, Surrender, and Staz, who I think was like a person I wasn't exactly sure about going into Hearthstone Grandmasters because I haven't seen him compete. I know he went full-time into the professional career based off his studies. He took some time off of Hearthstone, and he came back, and now he's going into playoffs.
Yeah.
So good for him. And then over on the other side, we have Tyler making it through along with Shaxi, which is it's really impressive to see Tyler be able to come back through because I know that he went through a period of time where he wasn't sure based off his family's health, and he came back, and now for the past few months, this guy's been killing it.
Yeah, had a rough time early on when we were still in the HCT season as well. Did qualify for Winter and Worlds, but finished pretty low at both those events, so got to be pretty happy.
All right, we got confirmation finally that the administrators have ruled that Purple is the winner based off of the disconnect, and I think his face says it all based off of just how the series has panned out and honestly disappointment ours. But we're going to check in with the winner, obviously, because we want to talk Purple and get his thoughts on the series. Purple, are you there?
Yeah, what's up?
All right, so quite the roller coaster of emotions. Talk to me about just what's on your mind right now.
I didn't. Game one was a roller coaster because I didn't actually see myself explode. So I was really confused. It was like it's 1-1. I'm like, what? And on my screen, I mean, it might have been the emotions that made me not realize that. But and in game two, I'm just kind of upset I didn't get to finish putting him to 0 because I was well on my way. And I don't know. This disconnect took away my glory.
Yeah, it does. It kind of like throws a little question mark there, but your hand definitely looked really good. Did you?
He's super dead. He's basically 0 from here. He's mathematically dead. I have over 30 damage left in the deck. Elysiana, if it doesn't work out, the only advantage he has is fatigue, and it's actually looking like Mecha Cocoon could actually come down. Game's super over. I wanted to put him to 0 though.
We agree. We look at we can even see the hands right now still. Based
we're
off
looking
of
at the
stuff.
reconnect.
Would you like to know what's in his hand just for reference? No.
Sure.
All right. Okay. I was trying to entertain the conversation in case you wanted to elaborate further on it.
It's a bunch of nothing.
It's like upgradable Framebot and Clockwork Goblin,
Elysiana,
Shield Slam, and Brawl. Anyways. Purple, we know that it was kind of a back and forth season for you. I know obviously this is not the way you want to qualify for playoffs, but now that you have, do you have any thoughts on how the season ended up shaking up?
Pretty disappointing season for me. Like I didn't get first. And if you're not first, you're last. And Wise Prophet once said that. So that's where we're at. A little disappointed. Happy to make playoffs, but not the score I wanted.
Fair enough. Do you think it was anything that you could have done better in terms of your own personal performance, or do you feel like that was just some unlucky circumstance that caused you to fall to third place?
Like, I mean, in like Warrior Mirrors across the season, I'm sure my opponents have accumulated 70 turns of Boom against me not having Boom, and like just things haven't gone great in game. Just like. The results could just be a bit better if I get a bit luckier. My opponents get a little less lucky, kind of thing. So, you know.
Have you tried shuffling?
I think I'm one of the better competitors in the field, and just keep playing my best. Like game one, like I beat 9 Devastators. That was my game. I don't know if you guys noticed. I was counting on my fingers. It was 9 to 2.
I thought it
won
was.
that
I
game.
thought it was
feel-
8.
That was the 9th one, the last. Yeah. So like, I feel good at where I am as a player. A few good bounces and a couple breaks, and I can win this one.
All right, cool. Well, I mean, if any indication, perhaps things will finally swing your way come playoff time. But congrats on the win. Any last thoughts here, or any last questions, TJ?
No questions for me. Any last thoughts, Purple?
Nah, just this whole situation is just upsetting. But and my mom taught me when I was young, if you don't have anything to say, don't say anything at all. So we'll leave it there.
Well said. Thanks for your time, Purple. Congrats on the victory, and we'll see you in playoffs.
Thanks. Bye.
So as you can tell, normally a very cheery guy to interview, very trolly, but no jokes with Purple this time. I think it just goes to show you how upsetting it is for everybody involved, us too, because that's not the way we want to go down. And our thoughts definitely are with Rase right now, because that's just unfortunate.
Yeah. He did throw one joke in there.
Sort
A
of.
wise prophet once said, if you're not first, you're last. But it was said in a very somber tone.
That was pretty. It's a real quote.
It's a real quote from a comedy movie, but yes, a real quote nonetheless.
Oh, okay. Was that the first time it was mentioned there? I thought it was just like a common idiom. if you
No.
will. All right. Okay, well, that's it for our first match here. Purple versus Rase. So that is the last and sixth and final playoff spot that's been determined. Coming up next, we have